You're a soft one, Mr. Grinch. You really aren't too bad. The Who's down in Whoville love you and you love all animals, Mr. Grinch. You just have a sensitive heart, just like all mammals. Okay, I just came up with that on the spot, so just a little improv to give you an idea of what this movie is like. But anyway, this is The Grinch, just simply The Grinch. It's the latest Illumination animated film from the people that did Despicable Me, Secret Life of Pets, Sing, The Lorax, and I actually have no idea how many interpretations of How the Grinch Stole Christmas there were before this one. Obviously, the two most famous ones are the Chuck Jones animated one and the live-action Ron Howard movie. And I don't think I need to go into the plot. It's based on the iconic Dr. Seuss book about the Grinch who lives just up north of Whoville and decides to steal Christmas from all the Who's down there. And yeah, there's not much else to say. It's a timeless tale. And as I mentioned, there are two other interpretations of this book that came out before. The first is my favorite, the Chuck Jones animated short, which came out in the 1960s and had Frankenstein's monster himself, Boris Karloff, do the narration as well as voice the Grinch. It's one of my all-time favorite Christmas specials. It's probably tied with the Charlie Brown Christmas in terms of TV specials, and it's my second favorite thing to watch on Christmas besides The Nightmare Before Christmas. And then people remember the Ron Howard version in which Jim Carrey was the Grinch. And I know that's the Grinch from my generation, but I'm sorry, that movie is terrible. And I haven't watched it in over a decade, but I just wanted to go in with a fresh mind, and I don't hate it as much as The Cat in the Hat, but it's still not very good. There are points where Jim Carrey is fantastic and he embodies the character of the Grinch, but other times he's just goofing around being Jim Carrey, and it's hard for me to separate the actor from the character. And despite those moments where Jim Carrey is good, and despite the great production design throughout this entire film, the Who makeup is just downright horrifying, and it's just way too raunchy for my taste. It's not R-rated raunchy, but for Dr. Seuss property, it's just too much. Like, I was rewatching this movie, and when they go into his backstory, I was like, wait a minute. They put in a key party in a Dr. Seuss property. For those of you who don't know what a key party is, just look it up on Urban Dictionary and you'll find out soon enough. So it was just not for me. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people love it, and good for them, and I know it's the Grinch of my generation, but I just can't stand that movie. Which is why when Illumination was doing their own version of the Grinch, and it was going to be animated, I felt mixed because Illumination just does not aim high when it comes to making their animated films. They do the least amount of effort and say, that's good enough, we could just put it out in the theaters. They just really go for the low-hanging fruit. But on the other hand, Dr. Seuss books work better in animated form. And if there was any opportunity at all to make a Grinch movie that was better than the Jim Carrey one, I'm all for it. I was all on board. And this one is better, in my opinion, than the Jim Carrey version. But that's not really saying a whole lot. It's not that much better. For me, it's better just on the basis that it's animated, because it's just a very beautiful and colorful movie. A lot of the character designs look great. The Grinch himself looks fantastic. And I feel like there's quite a bit of imagination that goes into designing Whoville. It's more elaborate and feels more populated than the Ron Howard movie ever was. And also, this movie's not raunchy at all. The Ron Howard, Jim Carrey Grinch really tried to appeal to a more adult audience, whereas this one goes in the complete opposite direction and tries to appeal to younger kids. And there's nothing bad about it, but at the same time, there are just a few points in the movie where it feels a bit bland. There are a lot of points throughout this movie where they try to make it hip and cool for the kids. They make Cindy Lou Who more of a cooler character, whereas in the Chuck Jones version in the book, they really didn't have her do much. Which, I mean, I'll give it to the Ron Howard version. Cindy Lou Who was a little more of an innocent child, though she was definitely not 2 years old. Whereas Cindy Lou Who in this movie, I could actually buy being 2 years old, but she acts older than she actually is. And this movie also tries to appeal to a younger crowd so much that they bring in a rap version of the Grinch song, but it's modified with different lyrics, and I just couldn't stand it. This is stuff that animated movies did in the early to mid 2000s. And this is 2018. Nobody really does that anymore. And it just, I don't know, it's gonna make the movie feel very outdated. Which, again, if I'm gonna give any credit to the Jim Carrey, Ron Howard version, it's that it feels like it could be timeless. I mean, 18 years later, people still watch that movie and love it. I'm not one of those people, but I totally get it. And then, obviously, the Chuck Jones one has absolutely stood the test of time. But then you come to what I think is the biggest travesty of the movie, the Grinch himself. He's voiced by Benedict Cumberbatch, who definitely does a good job of the Grinch. He makes it his own thing, whereas Jim Carrey made the Grinch his own thing to make it different from Boris Karloff. But my problem with the Grinch, as I joked about in the intro to this video, he just seems a bit soft. There's nothing about him where he's absolutely evil or diabolical against the Who's. He just seems more irritated at them. And the Who's don't fear the Grinch at all. Matter of fact, they love him, especially when it comes to one Who, voiced by Kenan Thompson. He tries to act like the Grinch is his best friend, and I mean, it's a different interpretation, and it's an attempt to try to make this Grinch a little more sympathetic than the others. But I just feel like he could have been doing some more diabolical things. I mean, they pretty much turn him into Gru, where he's supposed to be a villain, but they soften him up so he can still be a nice guy. Because in this movie, he loves animals. In the other interpretations of the Grinch, and I hate to do this, but he was always abusive to his dog Max, whereas in this version, he and Max are best friends. Sure, Max has to get up early in the morning and make the Grinch coffee, but still, they get along pretty well. I just feel like there was a really missed opportunity to make this Grinch feel pretty diabolical, so by the time you get to the end of the movie, when he turns around and his heart grows 3 sizes, it creates more of an impact. I don't really know what else to say about this movie. I don't hate it. There's quite a bit in this movie that I actually do like. Like I said, the animation's good. There are some visual gags that had me laughing, and anytime Kenan Thompson's character is on screen, he was stealing the show even more than the Grinch. Like, I was laughing at a lot of the lines Kenan Thompson was delivering. And even though this Grinch wasn't particularly Grinchy like some of the others, I will admit, when it got to the end of the movie, it was very heartfelt in the end, and I also appreciate that this movie doesn't deviate from the message that was in the original book and the Chuck Jones short. I really don't know if I'm spoiling anything because everybody knows the story of the Grinch, but in the Ron Howard version, they were all materialistic and selfish characters, and they were all throwing a fit when they found out that the Grinch stole all their stuff overnight. And it's almost like they had to begrudgingly realize that Christmas doesn't come from a store, and that maybe Christmas perhaps means a little bit more. I couldn't help myself. Whereas in the book and the Chuck Jones short, they knew the true spirit of Christmas, and I'm glad that this version retains that message. So even though it's a very safe movie and feels just like Illumination's other films, it has its moments. It's a harmless movie. Like, the thing I'll say about Illumination is that their movies are never offensively bad, or they give kids the wrong message. They're harmless. They just don't aim that high. And I doubt that this is a version that people will want to rewatch every Christmas. But it's not the worst thing in the world, which is why I'm going to say watch at your own risk. You'll definitely appreciate the art style and how Illumination really brings Dr. Seuss's world to life. But if you really want the best possible adaptation of the book, the Chuck Jones short is the way to go. That is the classic interpretation of the Grinch. And again, I know people love the Ron Howard movie, but no, I cannot handle that one. And that's my review for The Grinch. Now, I want to hear what you guys have to say. If you've seen the movie, what did you think? What's your favorite adaptation of The Grinch? Is it the Chuck Jones short? Is it the Ron Howard movie? Or do you like this one the most? Let me know in the comments below. And until next time, I hope you enjoyed this review. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, and of course, leave a comment. Don't forget to support my Patreon page, follow me on social media, and until next time, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you, there's only one.